Smoke filling the sky in Iran this morning after Israel bombs decimated Iran's nuclear and military facilities. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu warning that the Iranian regime is on the verge of alarming nuclear power.
Iran has produced enough highly enriched uranium for 9 atom bombs. 9. Iran has taken steps that it has never taken before, steps to weaponize this enriched uranium. And if not stopped, Iran could produce a nuclear weapon in a very short time. It could be a year. It could be within a few months.
Victoria Coates is a former Deputy National Security Advisor and the Heritage Foundation Vice President of National Security, and she joins us now. Victoria, good morning to you. A New York Times headline this morning reads, Israel's ambition is to destroy the heart of Iran's nuclear program, which is clearly the case that we are in this moment right now. And it's going to take a while to assess just how much damage has been done with these strikes. But address that for us. What do you think the outcome will this be? Did Israel set Iran's nuclear program back years, decades? Could it have been eliminated entirely in this? What do you think?
Well, good morning, Carly. I think the critical thing for the American people waking up this morning is that we are materially closer to enforcing President Trump's red line, that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. It's very simple. He reiterated it to Brett last night. That's just the basis of this. This regime that chants death to America and death to Israel can't have a nuclear weapon. And he did everything by the book. During the Biden administration, we had appeasement. We had this advancement in their nuclear program. That is all on them for allowing that to happen. But the president wrote a letter to the supreme leader. He engaged in negotiations. The Iranians are the ones who kept saying no. And last night, the Israelis took actions into their own hands. The administration was clear. We did not participate in this. But the Israelis really, I think, did take material steps to degrading that nuclear program.
Despite the fact that we have stated repeatedly that we did not participate in this, do you expect Iran to retaliate against us?
Well, that's always possible, Todd, and I think what we also saw last night is how vulnerable Iran is. I mean, they could do nothing. 200 Israeli planes flew hundreds of miles and hit 100 targets all over Iran, not just in Tehran, but in their nuclear sites as well. So they're somewhat limited in what they can do. They fired off, I think, about 100 drones. Israel seems pretty confident they can shoot those down, and I think that we will probably have a role in supporting Israel in case Iran does something bigger. But from a historical perspective, the important thing is Iran generally backs down when you take strong action against them, be it Operation Praying Mantis, for example, under President Reagan in 1988. In 2020, when President Trump rightly took out Qasem Soleimani, whose successor also was taken out last night, the head of the IRGC, they really didn't push back hard. So I think what we have to do is be very vigilant now, very concerned. Secretary Hegseth said all of our contingencies were being attended to in the region and beyond in case of Iranian retaliation. But I think we can also trust the Israelis to have a handle on this.
Yeah, and when it comes to the Mossad, Victoria, this is Axios reporting. Israel's spy agency Mossad was conducting operations inside Iran, including hunting for leadership targets in Tehran. The Jerusalem Post also says that these operations are focused on harming Iran's strategic missile capabilities, and they're also focused on harming Tehran's air defense capabilities. So these are Mossad agents inside Iran. I mean, we've seen this before last year when Mossad agents took down the leader of Hamas in Tehran when he was in an apartment in the heart of Iran. So that means that when it comes to Iranian leadership, they are once again reminded that no one is safe.
Exactly. I mean, the Israelis are just saying we can reach out and touch you whenever we want to. You know, they had that in 2018 when they recovered the Ahmad archive from Iran. And the other critical thing here is how much Israel has done since October 7th to degrade Iran's other tools in the region. Hezbollah, Hamas, for example, the Assad regime in Syria. These things are all gone for Israel. And so this notion of this huge regional conflagration, the Seventh Front War, Israel has done the hard work to prevent that from happening, from not dragging the United States into a war, and now not to face the same kinds of tools they would have faced 2 years ago in the event that this had been necessary. So I think that is another really important part of this picture. You know, they're not as concerned about all of the precision-guided missiles that used to be targeted at them out of Lebanon. Those are gone now due to these kinds of very dramatic operations that we're seeing the Mossad conduct in Iran today.
Victoria, thus far this morning, we have been focused on Iran's ability to complete its nuclear weapon program. And we've been focused on the lens of the infrastructure, the buildings themselves. I want to focus on the personnel. Will Iran be able to complete its nuclear program and get a weaponized nuke in light of the fact that 6 scientists were wiped out last night? Do they have the personnel to complete their mission?
Well, it's certainly much harder now, Todd, and I think that is the key thing, is Israel's looking at this holistically, that yes, they want to damage the infrastructure and the missiles and the missile defense and the terrorist proxies, but also take out the scientists. And, you know, Iran has had every opportunity to prevent this from happening. And if they really didn't want a nuclear weapon, why wouldn't they have welcomed the inspectors? Why wouldn't they have opened up these scientists to the IAEA, to investigations of what they're up to? And they could have avoided all of this. President Trump has offered them so many off-ramps, and they are the ones who said no. They are the ones who brought this on themselves. And I agree, I think they're going to have a much harder time putting it back together without that kind of technical expertise that was eradicated last night.
Yeah, 2 of the scientists played a leading role in Iran's nuclear development, so a much more difficult time, to say the least. Victoria, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Okay, let's bring in former FBI Special Agent and Navy SEAL Jonathan Gilliam. Jonathan, good morning to you. I want to talk to you about what has led to this moment in time. When you think about since October 7th, what Israel was capable of doing with the pager attack against Hezbollah, where Hamas stands right now, and where the Houthis that have, with the help of the United States, been very much decimated in their capabilities to strike back. All of that leading to this moment that we sit in right now.
Right. And, you know, it's interesting when we look at this, Israel has actually evolved back to the out of the box thinking and the tactics of eliminating your enemy like it was in before World War II and during World War II. After that, the world moved to a different way of fighting. And we've seen a tremendous amount of advances in techniques and evolution of warfare in Ukraine and Russia. And the way that the Iranian intel services in China use social media, for instance, to actually form social issues within other nations. And now we see this, where Israel has gone back and systematically taken out the proxies. Now, this is very important because Iran does not fight their own wars outside of their borders. They use proxies. And I don't know if most people realize that. They have targeted Israel over and over using Hamas, Hezbollah. They went after Israel's strategic targets using the Houthis. And so somewhere along the way, Israel figured this out. And I think this is part of at least a 3-prong operation. First was the intel gathering about Hamas and Hezbollah and Iran themselves, along with the Houthis. And then they started carrying out attacks to really just cripple Hamas and Hezbollah. We, as you just said, helped with the Houthis. But along that way, there was an initial attack inside of Iran. It tested their air defenses. We saw that they were horrible. And it showed that Iran did not have the ability to go the distance all the way over themselves into Israel and actually effectively attack Israel. So with all of that in place and understanding all that and all those different missions working, they were able to then go and start putting these operatives inside Iran and setting up for the big attack. And I think the rest of the world needs to realize that this is the way warfighting has evolved, and Israel is successful because they did it that way. They didn't just do it politically.
So, Jonathan, what do you think Iran is doing right now? Are they calling up their proxies that have been severely degraded over the past year and a half and saying, help us strike back?
Well, so here's where the real issue, I think, of the future for all of us comes into play, is that we constantly call, and I've heard several guests call Iran the terrorist of the region. But the reality is terrorism is a tactic that they use. Their ideology is fundamental Islam, and this has been a case for thousands of years. And Iran has never evolved or progressed to where they work things out diplomatically. You could never trust them. And so with this fundamentalism, this is the fear that I have, is that even inside the United States, the exact attack that Israel just carried out inside the borders of Iran, with the way that our border was down for 4 years, there could be cells here that could be activated by Iran or proxies and groups that are loyal to Iran. Same thing in Israel. That's basically what happened on October 7th when the Hamas went in and attacked Israel. They weren't prepared for that. And so we need to be prepared. Israel needs to be prepared for those types of attacks. And the number one way to do that is for the citizenry to be aware. And that's what's going to prevent the majority of this. But Israel is definitely on top of their game. And right now, Iran should be in panic mode because they don't even have the ability right now at this point to run operations with their proxies because they're fighting for their life.
Yeah, the fear of sleeper cells in the United States is very concerning. It's something that the president is very aware of and trying to mitigate as we speak. Jonathan, thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you, Carly.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.